Have you ever felt like your mornings are chaotic and set the tone for a hectic day ahead? Imagine if you could change that by establishing a morning routine that fosters mental discipline. What if your daily habits could shape your mindset, turning chaos into clarity? Let's dive in. A strong morning routine is the foundation of mental discipline. Imagine starting each day with a sense of purpose, calmness, and control. It's not about following a rigid schedule, but about crafting a practice that aligns with your values and priorities. This routine sets the tone for everything that follows, helping you navigate your day with focus and clarity. The first step to building a morning routine is simplicity. Start with small, achievable habits. When you wake up, avoid reaching for your phone immediately. Instead, take a moment to breathe deeply, center yourself, and set a positive intention for the day. This brief pause establishes a mindset of calmness and sets you up for success. Next, incorporate gratitude into your morning. Studies show that reflecting on what you appreciate can positively affect your mood and mindset. It shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance, helping you approach challenges with optimism. Take 5 minutes to think of 3 things you are grateful for, no matter how small. This practice will not only help you feel more grounded, but it will also sharpen your mental discipline. Mental discipline is like muscle memory. The more you practice, the stronger it becomes. Just as athletes train their bodies, you need to train your mind. Consistency is key here. By establishing a routine, you create a habit of discipline that will spill over into other areas of your life. Track your progress and reflect on how your morning routine affects your day. You don't have to make huge changes overnight, but you should keep track of your consistency. Whether you use a journal, an app, or a simple checklist, logging your progress will help you stay accountable. It's easy to get off track, but reviewing your progress can help you get back on the path. As you stick to your morning routine, you'll start noticing subtle shifts in your mindset. You'll begin approaching challenges with more focus, calmness, and resilience. You may find yourself managing stress better, making clearer decisions, and maintaining emotional balance more easily. These changes are a result of your mental discipline training. Your morning routine is also transferable. The skills you develop, focus, calmness, resilience, will help you in other areas of your life. Whether you're at work, in a social setting, or facing a personal challenge, the discipline you've cultivated will give you a calm foundation to build on. The more you practice, the more you strengthen these mental muscles, and the more seamlessly they'll integrate into your daily life. But remember, mental discipline doesn't mean perfection. There will be days when things don't go as planned, and that's okay. Life happens, and flexibility within your routine is just as important as consistency. It's about finding balance. If you miss a morning or feel off track, don't be too hard on yourself. Adjust, adapt, and keep going. The goal is to progress, not to achieve perfection. Your morning routine is your daily commitment to yourself. Each time you honor this time, you strengthen your mental resilience and lay the groundwork for a more fulfilling, purposeful life. Finally, celebrate your journey. Every small step you take in cultivating mental discipline matters. Each moment spent in practice compounds into greater control, confidence, and clarity. Embrace the routine, knowing that you're training your mind to work with you, not against you. Setting boundaries is an essential skill for maintaining emotional well-being and nurturing healthy relationships. Unfortunately, many of us hesitate to set limits because we fear hurting others or feel guilty for saying no. Yet, boundaries are not walls that isolate us from others. Instead, they are guidelines that protect our energy and ensure that our needs are respected. The first step in setting boundaries is recognizing the value of doing so. Boundaries allow us to maintain balance in our lives. They help us preserve our energy, protect our mental space, and enable us to prioritize what truly matters. Without boundaries, we risk burnout, frustration, and resentment. Understanding this helps you reframe the idea of boundaries from something negative to something essential for your well-being. Guilt often arises when we think of boundaries, and that's where the real challenge lies. It's crucial to understand why we feel guilty about setting limits. For many of us, guilt comes from a deeply ingrained belief that we must please others or avoid conflict at all costs. We worry that saying no will disappoint people or damage our relationships. These fears are natural, but they don't have to control our actions. Once we identify these fears, we can begin to challenge them. We need to realize that our worth is not dependent on constantly meeting the needs of others. Saying no does not diminish our value. In fact, it enhances our self-respect and teaches others how to treat us. Boundaries are a form of self-care, and when we make time for ourselves, we are better equipped to give to others. The key to setting effective boundaries lies in self-awareness. Before you can establish limits, you need to understand what you need to feel safe, respected, and balanced. Reflect on moments when you felt overwhelmed, uncomfortable, or taken advantage of. These experiences are often signals that your boundaries were crossed. Pay attention to these feelings as they can guide you in identifying areas where you need to set limits. Once you've identified what you need, it's time to communicate your boundaries clearly. One of the most important aspects of boundary setting is expressing your limits in a straightforward, non-apologetic way. You don't need to justify your boundaries excessively or explain them in detail. For example, instead of saying, "I'm sorry, but I need some alone time tonight because I'm feeling drained," you can simply say, "I need some quiet time tonight to recharge." This clear communication shows respect for your needs and helps others understand your perspective. Setting boundaries is not always easy. You may face resistance, especially if people are used to you being available or accommodating. People might be surprised, disappointed, or even attempt to persuade you to change your mind. It's essential to prepare yourself mentally for this resistance and stay firm in your decision without engaging in emotional debates. Remember, boundaries are about protecting your energy and well-being. They're not about controlling others' reactions. It's also important to detach from the need for external validation when enforcing boundaries. Their reactions are not your responsibility, and it's essential not to internalize their feelings as personal attacks. Instead, focus on maintaining your stance with calmness and consistency. This approach reinforces your commitment to self-respect. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual respect, and boundaries are the foundation of this respect. When you set clear limits, you model self-care and encourage others to do the same. Boundaries create a safe space for authentic connection. They prevent misunderstandings and allow both parties to feel valued and heard. Over time, this mutual respect strengthens the relationship. One of the most significant benefits of setting boundaries is protecting your time and energy. When you consistently honor your limits, you create space for what truly matters: your goals, your health, your passions. Boundaries help prevent burnout and promote emotional stability. By saying no to things that don't align with your values, you free up energy for activities and relationships that bring you joy and fulfillment. To combat guilt, practice positive self-talk. Remind yourself that setting boundaries is not selfish. It's an act of love, both for yourself and for others. By taking care of your own needs, you're better able to show up fully for those around you. Your well-being is a valid priority, and honoring your boundaries reinforces this belief. It's also helpful to start small when setting boundaries. Begin by saying no in low-stakes situations. For example, if you're asked to take on an extra task at work when you're already feeling overwhelmed, practice saying, "I'm unable to take on anything else right now." These smaller experiences will help you build confidence and resilience when it comes to enforcing more significant boundaries in the future. As you practice setting boundaries, visualize the outcomes you desire. Imagine peaceful interactions, respect from others, and a sense of emotional balance. This visualization will motivate you to stay firm when faced with challenges. Focusing on the positive outcomes helps shift your mindset from fear to empowerment. Seeking support can also be valuable when boundary setting feels especially difficult. Talking to friends, mentors, or therapists can provide encouragement and strategies for navigating tough situations. Their perspectives can help normalize the challenge of setting boundaries and provide practical advice for handling resistance. Remember, boundaries evolve over time. Your needs and circumstances change, and so should your limits. It's important to regularly check in with yourself and assess whether your boundaries are still serving you well. Flexibility within firmness ensures that your boundaries remain relevant and effective as you grow and change. Finally, celebrate your progress. Each time you set a boundary and honor your needs, you reinforce a positive cycle of self-respect and emotional well-being. Recognize that this practice is not about perfection, but about progress. It's a lifelong journey, and each step you take helps you build stronger, healthier relationships with others, and most importantly, with yourself. Triggers are powerful emotional cues that arise from specific situations, people, or memories. They can provoke strong reactions, often before we even realize what's happening. These emotional responses can be so intense that they seem to control us, leading to reactions we later regret. Learning to observe your triggers without letting them control you is a pivotal skill in emotional mastery. Understanding triggers. Triggers often stem from past experiences or unresolved issues that your mind associates with danger, discomfort, or pain. These can be deeply ingrained reactions, even to seemingly small events. For example, an innocent comment from a colleague might make you feel defensive, or a stressful situation might trigger feelings of fear and helplessness. At their core, triggers are signals. They point to something that needs attention. By observing your triggers, instead of reacting impulsively, you gain control over your emotional responses. This practice allows you to pause, understand why you're feeling what you're feeling, and choose a more constructive course of action. The first step, awareness. The key to managing triggers lies in awareness. The moment a trigger occurs, you must be able to recognize it without judgment. This requires developing a high level of self-awareness. When you notice a sudden emotional shift, perhaps a surge of anger, anxiety, or sadness, take a step back and acknowledge the feeling. Label it for what it is, such as, "I'm feeling anger," or "I'm noticing anxiety rising." This simple recognition creates space between the trigger and your reaction, giving you time to choose how to respond. Often, we try to suppress or deny our emotions when they arise, thinking that ignoring them will make them go away. However, this only intensifies them over time. Instead, the goal is to accept your emotions as they come. Allow yourself to feel them without judgment. This is the first step toward emotional mastery. Not suppressing your triggers, but observing and acknowledging them. Creating emotional distance. Once you've recognized your trigger, the next step is to create emotional distance between yourself and the trigger. This means not letting the trigger dictate your immediate response. Instead of reacting in anger, fear, or frustration, you take a pause, a deep breath, or a moment of mindfulness. You can achieve this emotional distance by using grounding techniques, such as focusing on your breath or observing your surroundings. These methods help redirect your attention away from the emotional surge and back to the present moment. By taking this pause, you interrupt the automatic reaction and gain control over your response. Reframing your perspective. Emotions are often driven by the stories we tell ourselves. For instance, when someone cuts you off in traffic, your immediate reaction might be anger. But if you take a step back, you may realize that your anger is not necessarily about the other driver. It's about your interpretation of the situation. Reframing your perspective is an essential tool in managing triggers. When you feel triggered, pause and ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? Is it based on assumptions, past experiences, or fears that may not be grounded in the present moment? Challenging these automatic thoughts can help you reframe the situation and reduce the emotional charge attached to it. For example, if you're feeling triggered by a comment at work, try to reframe it by asking yourself, is this really about me, or is it more about the person making the comment? This shift in perspective helps you detach from the emotional weight of the trigger and allows for a more reasoned and thoughtful response. Building resilience through practice. Like any skill, learning to observe your triggers without reacting takes practice. The more you cultivate self-awareness and emotional distance, the easier it becomes to manage your triggers. Begin by noting down situations where you were triggered, how you responded, and whether your reaction was helpful or harmful. Keeping a journal helps you track patterns in your emotional responses, allowing you to understand what triggers you and why. As you continue this practice, you'll begin to notice recurring themes. Maybe certain situations or people consistently bring up feelings of frustration or anxiety. By identifying these patterns, you can start to work on specific triggers more intentionally. You can also develop strategies for managing them, such as deep breathing, stepping away from the situation, or practicing mindfulness.
Managing physical responses.
Triggers often manifest physically: a racing heart, tightness in the chest, shallow breathing. These physical sensations are your body's way of signaling that you're emotionally activated. Learning to manage these physical responses is an important part of emotional regulation. You can use techniques like progressive muscle relaxation, deep breathing exercises, or visualization to help calm your body when you feel triggered. By focusing on relaxing your physical state, you signal to your nervous system that the threat is not immediate, which helps you regain control over your emotional reactions. Emotional resilience. Developing a plan. The more you practice observing your triggers, the more emotionally resilient you become. Resilience doesn't mean you never feel triggered. It means that you're able to recover from the trigger without letting it derail your day or your mood. It means bouncing back faster and with more awareness. Create a plan for handling your triggers when they arise. This plan might include taking a deep breath, counting to 10, or stepping away from the situation for a few minutes. By having a set routine for how to respond to triggers, you ensure that you're not caught off guard when they happen. Over time, these actions become automatic, and you'll find yourself responding with greater calm and clarity. Self-compassion and understanding your vulnerabilities. It's important to approach trigger management with self-compassion. Recognize that we all have vulnerabilities and emotional sensitivities, and that being triggered is a natural part of being human. Don't be hard on yourself when you react impulsively. Instead, treat yourself with kindness and understanding. If you react negatively to a trigger, instead of berating yourself, take the opportunity to reflect on what you could do differently next time. The key is not perfection, but progress. Every time you observe your triggers and manage them, you're building emotional strength and resilience. Seeking professional support. Sometimes, our triggers are deeply rooted in past trauma or unresolved emotional wounds. In these cases, seeking support from a therapist or counselor can be incredibly helpful. Professional support can provide you with tools and techniques for addressing deep-seated triggers and help you work through any past trauma that may be contributing to your emotional reactions. Therapists can also guide you in exploring your emotional triggers more deeply, helping you understand the underlying causes and developing healthier coping mechanisms. Therapy can be a valuable resource for anyone looking to master their emotional responses and create lasting change. Embracing triggers as teachers. Ultimately, triggers are not enemies. They are teachers. Every time we are triggered, we are presented with an opportunity to learn more about ourselves. Triggers reveal our emotional needs, fears, and desires. By embracing them with curiosity instead of fear or judgment, we transform them from obstacles into growth opportunities. As you work through your triggers, reflect on what each one is teaching you. Are there patterns in your emotional reactions? What deeper issues do these triggers point to? By asking these questions, you gain greater self-awareness and emotional intelligence, which helps you navigate life with more grace and resilience. Conclusion. Observing your triggers without letting them control you is an essential step toward emotional mastery. By becoming aware of your triggers, creating emotional distance, reframing your perspective, and developing strategies for managing your physical responses, you can regain control over your emotions and reactions. This practice helps you build emotional resilience and respond thoughtfully, rather than impulsively. It empowers you to live with greater emotional freedom, paving the way for healthier relationships, deeper self-awareness, and lasting peace. Emotions are powerful forces that shape our thoughts, behaviors, and decisions. They can provide valuable insights, guiding us toward what matters most, but they can also cloud our judgment and lead us to react impulsively. In the heat of the moment, emotional reactions may feel urgent and compelling, yet they often result in regret or unnecessary conflict. Learning to respond with logic instead of reacting emotionally is a skill that can transform your life, fostering better decision-making, improved relationships, and emotional stability. The difference between feeling and reacting. The first step in mastering this skill is understanding the difference between feeling an emotion and reacting to it. Emotions like anger, sadness, fear, or excitement are natural and inevitable. They arise as part of our human experience, signaling something important to us. However, reacting emotionally means allowing these feelings to dictate our actions, often without considering the consequences. For example, If you're angry with a colleague, your initial impulse might be to lash out and defend yourself. However, responding impulsively can escalate the situation and damage the relationship. On the other hand, if you choose to pause and engage your logical mind, you can assess the situation more objectively, allowing you to respond in a more thoughtful and productive way.
Pausing before reacting.
One of the most powerful tools in responding with logic is the pause. When emotions rise, the urge to react impulsively can feel overwhelming. However, taking just a few seconds to pause, breathe deeply, and center yourself can be the difference between reacting in a way that you regret and responding in a way that aligns with your values. This pause creates space between the stimulus, the trigger, and your response, giving you time to consider the situation more objectively. In this brief moment, ask yourself questions like, what's really going on here? What do I want to achieve with my response? And how will this reaction affect me and the other person in the long run? By doing so, you shift your focus from emotional reactivity to rational response.
Understanding the facts.
When emotions run high, it's easy to make assumptions or exaggerate the situation. Our minds tend to catastrophize, imagining the worst-case scenario. This is why it's essential to separate facts from interpretations when responding to emotional triggers. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, the fact is that the person changed lanes abruptly. Your emotional reaction might be anger or frustration, interpreting the action as disrespectful or inconsiderate. However, by taking a step back and focusing on the facts, the car changed lanes, the driver might have been distracted, you can see that the situation may not have been personal, and your anger is based more on your interpretation than the facts. By practicing this separation between facts and assumptions, you can respond more logically and avoid unnecessary emotional escalations.
The power of questioning.
When emotions surge, our thinking often becomes clouded, and we may act on impulse without fully understanding the situation. To counter this, it's helpful to ask yourself key questions that guide your thought process. These questions can help you assess the situation from a logical standpoint and prevent rash decisions. Some questions to ask yourself in the heat of the moment include, what is the truth of this situation? What are the objective facts? What do I want to achieve by responding? What is my desired outcome? How might this response impact my relationships, my goals, or my well-being in the future? What would a calm, reasoned response look like in this situation? How would I respond if I weren't emotionally charged? These questions guide you toward logical thinking, allowing you to detach from emotional biases and consider the broader context. This approach fosters clarity and empowers you to make decisions that align with your values. Emotional intelligence and empathy. While logic is crucial for sound decision-making, emotional intelligence and empathy play a vital role in responding thoughtfully. Emotional intelligence allows you to understand not only your emotions, but also the emotions of others. This awareness helps you navigate complex situations without being driven solely by your feelings. Empathy involves understanding another person's perspective, even when you don't agree with them. It's the ability to listen to someone's point of view without judgment, acknowledging their feelings and experiences. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything they say or do, but it helps you respond calmly and constructively. For example, if a friend is upset with you, emotional intelligence allows you to recognize their emotions, and empathy helps you understand why they might feel that way. By responding with empathy, you validate their feelings without necessarily agreeing with their actions, creating space for constructive dialogue. Reframing negative thoughts. Our emotional reactions often arise from negative or distorted thinking patterns. Cognitive distortions such as all-or-nothing thinking, overgeneralization, and catastrophizing can fuel impulsive emotional responses. By reframing negative thoughts, you can change your emotional reaction and respond more logically. For instance, if you're feeling anxious about a presentation, you might have thoughts like, "I'm going to fail," or "everyone will think I'm incompetent." These negative thoughts can trigger fear and anxiety. By reframing them, for example, thinking, "I may feel nervous, but I am prepared, and I can handle this," you shift your mindset from fear to confidence, allowing you to respond with clarity instead of panic.
Reframing helps you break free from emotional traps and encourages a more balanced and reasoned perspective, reducing the power of negative thoughts. Building the habit of logical thinking.
Responding with logic instead of emotional reactivity is a habit that takes time to build. Like any skill, the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Start by identifying areas in your life where you tend to react emotionally, such as work, relationships, or family dynamics. Once you've identified these triggers, commit to pausing, breathing, and asking the key questions before responding.
You can also build the habit of logical thinking by engaging in activities that challenge your mind, such as reading, puzzles, or problem-solving exercises. These activities train your brain to think critically and logically, making it easier to apply this approach to real-life situations. Self-compassion and acceptance. As you work on developing the ability to respond logically, remember that this process takes time and patience. Be kind to yourself when you slip into emotional reactivity. It's important to acknowledge your feelings and give yourself grace. Emotional intelligence and logical thinking are learned skills, and it's normal to make mistakes along the way. When you do react emotionally, reflect on the situation afterward. Ask yourself what you could have done differently, and use it as an opportunity for growth. With each experience, you'll become better at managing your emotions and responding with logic. The role of mindfulness.
Mindfulness is a key component of responding with logic. By practicing mindfulness, you cultivate an awareness of your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations in the present moment. This heightened awareness allows you to observe your emotional reactions without getting swept away by them. Mindfulness also enhances your ability to pause and choose your response thoughtfully, rather than reacting impulsively.
You can incorporate mindfulness into your daily routine through practices like meditation, deep breathing, or simply paying attention to your thoughts and feelings throughout the day. The more you practice mindfulness, the easier it becomes to stay present and respond logically in difficult situations. Responding with logic in relationships.
In relationships, emotional reactions can lead to misunderstandings and conflict. However, by responding with logic and empathy, you can foster healthier, more constructive interactions. When faced with a disagreement, take a step back and assess the situation before reacting. Instead of escalating the conflict, approach the issue calmly, listening to the other person's perspective and expressing your thoughts in a clear, respectful manner.
Logical responses also involve setting boundaries.
If someone is crossing a boundary, respond firmly but calmly, stating your needs and limitations without getting defensive or aggressive. By maintaining emotional control and expressing yourself logically, you create an environment of respect and understanding.
Conclusion.
Responding with logic instead of emotional reactions is a transformative habit that allows you to navigate life's challenges with clarity, balance, and resilience. By practicing mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and reframing negative thoughts, you can break free from impulsive reactions and make decisions that align with your values and goals. This shift toward logical thinking enhances your relationships, improves decision-making, and fosters emotional stability. It empowers you to respond thoughtfully to both internal and external challenges, helping you lead a more intentional and fulfilled life. With time and practice, the ability to respond with logic becomes second nature, allowing you to approach each situation with greater confidence and composure. In every interaction, the human instinct to seek approval is often overwhelming. From childhood to adulthood, the desire for validation from others can shape the way we communicate, make decisions, and behave. However, when we prioritize external approval over personal growth, we risk sacrificing our authenticity and limiting our potential. Focusing on growth instead of approval is a powerful shift that transforms the way we engage with the world and each other. The trap of approval seeking. Approval seeking can be a subtle yet powerful force. It's easy to fall into the trap of constantly measuring our worth based on how others perceive us. Whether it's seeking praise at work, striving to meet the expectations of friends and family, or craving social media validation, the need for approval can consume our thoughts and actions. This external validation becomes a yardstick by which we judge our own value, leaving us susceptible to anxiety, self-doubt, and frustration when the approval we seek is not forthcoming. The problem with this is that approval is fleeting.
It is often dependent on external factors that are beyond our control. Seeking approval from others places our sense of self-worth in a constant state of instability. When we're not receiving the validation we crave, it can feel like a direct reflection of our inadequacies, leading to a cycle of insecurity and self-comparison. The shift toward growth. Instead of measuring our success by how others perceive us, focusing on growth allows us to redefine success on our terms. Growth is a continuous process, rooted in self-awareness, learning, and improvement. When we focus on our personal development rather than others' approval, we place ourselves in a position of empowerment, where our progress is determined by our own goals, values, and aspirations. Focusing on growth means understanding that mistakes, failures, and challenges are not signs of defeat, but opportunities for learning. Each experience, positive or negative, is an integral part of the journey toward becoming a better version of ourselves. The goal is not to be perfect, but to grow through every situation, every interaction, and every challenge. Breaking free from people-pleasing. People-pleasing is one of the most common manifestations of the approval-seeking mindset. When we constantly say yes to others' requests, compromise our values, or suppress our true feelings to avoid conflict, we're not honoring our authentic selves. People-pleasing may seem harmless, but it erodes self-respect and creates resentment. To break free from people-pleasing, it's important to set clear boundaries and learn to say no when necessary. Saying no doesn't mean rejecting others or being unkind. It simply means prioritizing your own needs and well-being. Saying yes when you don't genuinely want to creates an imbalance in relationships, while saying no when it's necessary fosters respect and mutual understanding. The power of authenticity. Authenticity is the foundation of personal growth. When we are true to ourselves, we stop seeking approval from others to define our worth. Authenticity means embracing who we are, regardless of whether or not others approve of us. It requires having the courage to express our opinions, desires, and feelings without fear of judgment. Authenticity is not about seeking perfection. It's about being genuine and embracing our flaws as part of our unique identity. Being authentic in our interactions builds deeper connections with others. When we show up as our true selves, we attract people who appreciate us for who we are, rather than for what we can offer them or how we can make them feel. This authenticity creates relationships based on mutual respect and trust, rather than the superficial need for approval. Embracing criticism and feedback. One of the greatest challenges in focusing on growth rather than approval is the fear of criticism. We all have an instinctual desire to avoid judgment and negative feedback, but this fear can hold us back from making the necessary changes to improve. When we focus on growth, criticism becomes an essential tool for learning and self-improvement. Instead of seeing feedback as a personal attack, we begin to view it as an opportunity to expand our understanding and refine our skills. Embracing criticism requires a shift in mindset. Rather than reacting defensively or feeling discouraged, we can approach feedback with curiosity and openness. What can we learn from this feedback? How can we use it to grow? The more we embrace criticism in a constructive way, the more we strengthen our ability to learn from every experience. Setting personal goals for growth. Growth is most effective when it's intentional. Setting clear, actionable goals allows us to focus our energy on what truly matters and track our progress over time. These goals should be aligned with our values, passions, and long-term aspirations, not based on what others expect from us. Personal goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. SMART. Whether it's learning a new skill, improving emotional intelligence, or advancing in our careers, having well-defined goals helps us stay focused and motivated. Importantly, these goals should come from a place of intrinsic motivation, not external pressure or the desire for approval. The role of self-compassion in growth. Growth is not always linear, and there will be times when progress feels slow or setbacks occur. During these times, it's essential to practice self-compassion. Self-compassion means treating ourselves with kindness and understanding when things don't go as planned. It means acknowledging that we're human and that we will face challenges along the way. Self-compassion provides the emotional resilience needed to keep moving forward. It helps us maintain our sense of worth, even in the face of failure or disappointment. When we practice self-compassion, we are more likely to take risks, embrace challenges, and continue learning, all of which contribute to our personal growth. Trusting the process. One of the most important aspects of focusing on growth is trusting the process. Growth takes time, and it requires patience. There will be times when we feel frustrated or uncertain, but it's crucial to remember that every step forward, no matter how small, is a step toward becoming the person we're meant to be. Trusting the process means staying committed to our goals, even when results aren't immediate. It involves understanding that the path to growth is filled with ups and downs, but that each experience is valuable in shaping us into the best version of ourselves. When we trust the process, we give ourselves permission to embrace the journey, rather than focusing solely on the destination. The benefits of focusing on growth. When we focus on growth rather than approval, we experience greater fulfillment, clarity, and peace. We develop a deeper sense of self-worth that isn't dependent on the opinions of others. Our relationships become more authentic and grounded in mutual respect, and we gain the confidence to pursue our goals and dreams without fear of judgment. Focusing on growth allows us to live a life of purpose and intention. It gives us the freedom to be ourselves, make decisions based on our values, and continuously evolve into the best version of who we can be. By shifting the focus from external validation. Conclusion. Focusing on growth instead of approval is a transformative mindset shift that empowers us to take control of our personal development. By embracing authenticity, setting meaningful goals, and practicing self-compassion, we create a life that is aligned with our true selves. Let go of the need to seek external validation and trust in the process of growth. Embrace every opportunity to learn, evolve, and become the person you are meant to be. Discomfort is a universal experience that often feels like an obstacle to be avoided at all costs. From the discomfort of physical pain to the emotional discomfort of vulnerability, we instinctively resist unpleasant feelings. However, discomfort, rather than being a threat to our well-being, holds the potential to be one of our greatest teachers. Accepting discomfort as a guide, rather than something to be feared, transforms our approach to challenges, personal growth, and the way we navigate life's ups and downs. The nature of discomfort. Discomfort is inherent in the human experience. Whether it arises from challenging situations, difficult emotions, or the process of change, discomfort is a signal that something is happening within or around us. When we encounter discomfort, we often perceive it as something negative, an indicator that something is wrong or that we are in danger. However, discomfort is a natural part of growth, and it plays a vital role in helping us evolve. The key to transforming discomfort into a valuable teacher is recognizing its purpose. Discomfort often arises when we are stepping outside of our comfort zones, pushing ourselves to try new things, or confronting our deepest fears and insecurities. It is during these moments that we are presented with opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Instead of running away from discomfort, we can learn to embrace it, understanding that it is a necessary part of the journey to becoming a better version of ourselves. Shifting the mindset toward discomfort. The first step in accepting discomfort as a teacher is to shift our mindset. Instead of seeing discomfort as a signal of failure or something to avoid, we can reframe it as a signal of progress. When we experience discomfort, it often means that we are challenging ourselves, growing, and expanding our boundaries. By embracing this perspective, we stop seeing discomfort as something to be feared and instead view it as an integral part of the process of change. This mindset shift requires an acknowledgement that growth is often uncomfortable. Whether we are learning a new skill, navigating a difficult relationship, or facing a personal challenge, the road to growth is rarely smooth. Discomfort helps us build resilience, patience, and emotional strength. It teaches us how to handle adversity and navigate through difficult situations with grace and composure. Discomfort as a catalyst for change. One of the most powerful ways discomfort acts as a teacher is by serving as a catalyst for change. Change is inherently uncomfortable. It requires us to let go of old habits, beliefs, and ways of thinking that no longer serve us. Discomfort often arises when we are on the cusp of transformation, pushing us to reevaluate our choices, attitudes, and behaviors. Without discomfort, there is little motivation to change. When everything is comfortable and predictable, we may become complacent,
avoiding the challenges that lead to growth. Discomfort shakes us out of our comfort zones, forcing us to confront the areas of our lives that need improvement. It challenges us to be more courageous, to take risks, and to push through our fears. In this way, discomfort propels us toward the changes we need to make in order to move forward. Embracing the uncertainty of growth. Discomfort is often rooted in uncertainty. We fear the unknown, and the discomfort of not knowing what comes next can be overwhelming. However, it is through uncertainty that we discover our true potential. Embracing the unknown opens the door to new possibilities and experiences that we may not have considered otherwise. When we accept discomfort as a natural part of the process, we stop allowing uncertainty to paralyze us. Instead, we learn to embrace it as an essential component of growth. It is in the unknown that we are forced to tap into our creativity, resourcefulness, and resilience. The more we face uncertainty with confidence and openness, the more we strengthen our ability to handle the challenges that life throws our way. The role of self-compassion in discomfort. Experiencing discomfort is difficult, and it's important to treat ourselves with compassion during these times. Self-compassion allows us to face discomfort with kindness and understanding, rather than judgment or self-criticism. When we are uncomfortable, our instinct may be to beat ourselves up, to view the discomfort as a failure, or to shame ourselves for not being able to handle it better. However, self-compassion teaches us that discomfort is not a reflection of our inadequacy, but rather a natural and necessary part of the growth process. When we practice self-compassion, we create a space in which we can face discomfort with openness and curiosity, rather than with fear or self-doubt. Self-compassion allows us to acknowledge the discomfort without identifying with it. It gives us the space to observe and learn from the discomfort, rather than allowing it to define us. This approach fosters emotional resilience and helps us navigate difficult emotions without being overwhelmed. Practical strategies for embracing discomfort. While embracing discomfort as a teacher sounds empowering, it can still be challenging in practice. To cultivate this mindset, we can use several strategies to help us move through discomfort with greater ease. Mindful awareness. One of the most effective ways to embrace discomfort is through mindfulness. Mindfulness encourages us to stay present and aware of our feelings without judgment. When we feel discomfort, we can observe it, label it, and simply be with it. This helps us create space between the discomfort and our reaction to it, allowing us to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Breathing techniques. Deep breathing is a simple but powerful tool for managing discomfort. Slow, controlled breaths activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to calm the body and mind. When discomfort arises, pause and take several deep breaths. This practice can help ground you in the present moment and alleviate some of the physical tension associated with discomfort. Cognitive reframing. Reframing involves changing our perspective on discomfort. Instead of viewing discomfort as something to be avoided, we can reframe it as an opportunity for growth. Ask yourself, what is this discomfort teaching me? How can I learn from it? This simple shift in mindset can transform discomfort into a tool for self-improvement. Progressive muscle relaxation. Progressive muscle relaxation is a technique that involves tensing and releasing different muscle groups to release physical tension. This can be particularly helpful when dealing with the physical discomfort associated with stress or anxiety. By consciously relaxing the body, we can reduce the intensity of the discomfort and create a sense of calm. Taking action despite discomfort. Sometimes the best way to deal with discomfort is simply to keep moving forward. Instead of waiting for the discomfort to go away before taking action, we can choose to take small steps toward our goals even when we feel uncomfortable. By moving through discomfort, we prove to ourselves that we are capable of handling challenges and pushing past fear. Building resilience through discomfort. Discomfort is an essential part of building emotional and mental resilience. Each time we face discomfort and navigate through it successfully, we strengthen our ability to handle future challenges. Resilience is not about avoiding discomfort, but about learning how to move through it with grace and perseverance. The more we embrace discomfort, the more resilient we become,
and the better equipped we are to face the inevitable difficulties that life will present. Resilience is built over time through consistent exposure to discomfort. Whether it's learning to manage stress, confronting our fears, or dealing with setbacks, every challenge we face and overcome adds to our resilience. Discomfort helps us build the emotional strength necessary to stay grounded in the face of adversity and continue moving forward, even when the road is difficult. Conclusion: discomfort is not something to be feared or avoided. It is a powerful teacher that helps us grow, evolve, and become stronger versions of ourselves. By shifting our mindset and embracing discomfort as a guide, we open ourselves up to new opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Through mindful awareness, self-compassion, and practical strategies, we can learn to navigate discomfort with ease and use it as a tool for personal transformation. The discomfort we experience today lays the foundation for the resilience and strength we will carry with us into the future. The way we speak holds immense power. Our words can either build connections or create barriers, inspire others or harm them. How we communicate with ourselves and others shapes our relationships, our self-esteem, and the overall quality of our lives. Often, in emotionally charged situations, we find ourselves reacting impulsively, saying things we don't mean, or expressing anger or frustration without fully thinking through the consequences. While emotions are a natural part of our human experience, learning to speak with intention, rather than allowing ourselves to be driven solely by emotion, can dramatically improve our communication and help us navigate conflicts more effectively. The power of words. Words are not just tools for conveying information. They are powerful instruments that influence our reality. They shape our perceptions, influence others' opinions, and impact the atmosphere of our interactions. What we say and how we say it can either foster understanding or create misunderstandings. Intentionally chosen words reflect clarity, respect, and consideration for others, while impulsive or emotionally driven words often result in hurt feelings, damaged relationships, or regret. When we speak impulsively, especially when we are angry, anxious, or frustrated, we might utter things that we don't fully mean or that don't reflect our true feelings. In these moments, we are reacting from a place of emotional overwhelm rather than responding thoughtfully. The key to breaking this cycle is learning to pause before speaking and engaging our logical mind rather than letting emotions dictate our responses. Speaking with intention means being aware of the impact of our words and choosing them carefully to achieve the desired outcome. Understanding emotional reactions. Our emotions are deeply connected to our communication. When we feel anger, fear, hurt, or frustration, we often feel an urge to express those emotions immediately. The problem is that, in emotionally charged situations, our judgment may be clouded. We may speak without fully understanding the situation or the other person's perspective, and in doing so, we risk escalating the conflict or causing unnecessary harm. Emotional reactions often arise from deeply ingrained patterns, past experiences, and unmet needs. For example, when we feel disrespected, we might automatically respond with defensiveness or attack. Or, when we feel afraid, we might retreat into silence, assuming that speaking out will only make things worse. These reactions are natural, but not always helpful. The goal isn't to suppress emotions, but to understand them and choose how to express them in a way that is productive and aligns with our values. The importance of pausing. One of the most powerful tools for speaking with intention is the simple act of pausing before responding. When emotions surge, it's easy to react instantly, to fire back a response without thinking it through. However, taking just a few seconds to pause, breathing deeply and collecting your thoughts, gives you the space to decide how you want to respond, rather than being swept away by the moment's intensity. A pause allows us to observe the situation objectively, giving us time to reflect on the underlying emotions and decide the best course of action. This doesn't mean we suppress or ignore our feelings, but rather that we allow ourselves to process them before speaking. By doing so, we ensure that our response is aligned with our goals, values, and the outcome we want to achieve. Using I statements. A core aspect of speaking with intention is using I statements, which can transform the way we communicate, especially during difficult conversations.
Instead of blaming or accusing others, I statements take ownership of our feelings and experiences, allowing us to communicate more openly and without triggering defensiveness. For example, instead of saying, "You always interrupt me," we can say, "I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted because I want to feel heard." This approach not only avoids placing blame on the other person, but also fosters a more empathetic dialogue. By expressing our emotions in a way that centers on our own experience, we invite the other person to understand our perspective without feeling attacked. This shift in language helps promote connection, understanding, and collaboration, even in difficult conversations. Clarity and conciseness in communication. Speaking with intention also involves clarity and conciseness. Often, when we are emotional, we may struggle to communicate clearly, using vague language or over-explaining our feelings. This can lead to confusion and frustration, as the other person may not fully understand what we are trying to say. By speaking concisely and directly, we reduce the chances of misunderstanding and ensure that our message is clear. When you find yourself in an emotionally charged situation, focus on keeping your message simple and to the point. Avoid getting lost in excessive details or wandering off topic. Instead, express your thoughts in a straightforward manner, staying focused on the issue at hand. This approach not only makes communication more effective, but also helps you maintain control of your emotions by preventing them from spiraling out of control. Managing nonverbal communication. Communication is not just about the words we use. It's also about how we convey those words through our tone, body language, and facial expressions. Nonverbal communication plays a significant role in how our message is received. If our body language contradicts our words, it can create confusion or send mixed signals. For example, if we say we're not upset but our arms are crossed, our tone is sharp, and our facial expression is tense, the other person may perceive us as angry, even if we're not consciously trying to communicate that. When speaking with intention, it's essential to be aware of both our verbal and nonverbal communication. Practice maintaining open, calm body language and a steady tone, especially during difficult conversations. This congruence between what we say and how we say it helps to reinforce our message and promotes mutual understanding, empathy, and listening. Intentional speaking is also about listening with empathy. It's not just about waiting for your turn to speak, but genuinely hearing and understanding the other person's point of view. Empathy is a key element of effective communication, allowing us to respond in a way that takes the other person's feelings and needs into account. By listening actively and empathetically, we demonstrate respect and validation, which fosters trust and cooperation. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything the other person says, but rather acknowledging their feelings and perspective. This practice helps to de-escalate conflicts, reduce defensiveness, and create a space where both parties feel heard and respected. Building emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, EI, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as the emotions of others. It plays a crucial role in how we communicate. Developing EI allows us to be more self-aware, manage our emotions more effectively, and navigate challenging interactions with greater ease. By building emotional intelligence, we improve our capacity for intentional speaking. We become more attuned to our emotional triggers, and we learn how to pause and choose our responses thoughtfully. EI also helps us to be more empathetic, which enhances our ability to communicate effectively and foster positive relationships. To build emotional intelligence, practice mindfulness. Reflect on your emotional responses and work on developing greater empathy for others. The impact of speaking with intention. When we learn to speak with intention, the impact on our relationships, both personal and professional, can be transformative. Thoughtful communication builds trust, deepens connections, and fosters mutual respect. It allows us to express ourselves authentically, without fear of damaging our relationships. Speaking with intention also helps to reduce misunderstandings and prevent unnecessary conflicts, leading to healthier, more harmonious interactions. Moreover, speaking with intention strengthens our sense of self-respect. When we communicate mindfully, we are making the conscious choice to honor both ourselves and the other person. This builds our confidence and reinforces our ability to manage difficult situations with grace and poise. Conclusion. Speaking with intention is a powerful skill that transforms how we communicate and navigate life's challenges. It requires mindfulness, self-awareness, and a commitment to being present in our interactions. By pausing before responding, using I statements, being clear and concise, managing our nonverbal communication, and practicing empathy, we can communicate more effectively and build stronger, more respectful relationships. Through intentional speaking, we align our words with our values and create more meaningful, impactful connections with the world around us. In every interaction, we often encounter moments where we feel the urge to prove others wrong. Whether it's in a debate, a conversation, or even a disagreement with a loved one, the desire to defend our position or demonstrate that we are right can feel like a strong, almost uncontrollable impulse. This need to prove others wrong, however, can lead to unnecessary conflict, damage relationships, and prevent us from growing emotionally and intellectually. The real challenge lies in learning how to let go of this need, accepting that being right is not always as important as understanding and building meaningful connections with others. The need to be right. The urge to prove others wrong often stems from a deeper, unconscious need to protect our self-esteem. When someone challenges our beliefs or opinions, it can feel like an attack on our identity. To defend ourselves, we become defensive, and the instinct to be right becomes tied to our sense of worth. We want to be validated, to be seen as correct, to be acknowledged for our perspective. However, this desire for validation can lead us to cling to our position, even when it's not serving us or the relationship in a healthy way. The truth is, our self-worth is not defined by being right. In fact, the most empowered and secure individuals are those who are comfortable with the idea that they don't always have to win every argument. They can accept that different perspectives exist and that disagreements are a natural part of life. Letting go of the need to be right is liberating. It allows us to release unnecessary tension and focus on what really matters: understanding others, finding common ground, and maintaining peace. Understanding the roots of the need to prove others wrong. Before we can let go of the need to prove others wrong, it's essential to understand where this impulse originates. For many people, this need is rooted in past experiences, cultural conditioning, or deeply ingrained beliefs about status, power, or respect. If you've ever been raised in an environment where being right was rewarded, or where your voice wasn't always heard, it's easy to understand why you might feel compelled to fight for validation in adulthood. In some cases, the need to prove others wrong arises from insecurity. We may fear that if we admit we don't have all the answers, or that someone else's perspective has value, it will somehow diminish us. We worry that showing any form of vulnerability will make us appear weak or inferior. However, this mindset is limiting. Vulnerability, far from being a sign of weakness, is actually a strength. It allows us to grow, learn, and form deeper connections with others. Letting go of the need to win every argument creates the space to embrace vulnerability and the opportunity to build stronger relationships. The impact of proving others wrong. At first glance, the desire to prove others wrong might seem harmless. It's just a way of defending our beliefs, right? But when we take a closer look at the long-term consequences of this behavior, the negative effects become clear. When we focus too much on being right, we risk losing sight of the larger picture. We become so attached to our views that we disregard the value of listening to others. This can lead to a pattern of dismissing others' perspectives, isolating ourselves, and even becoming combative. Relationships suffer when one person is constantly trying to prove their point, while the other feels invalidated or unheard. Over time, this erodes trust and mutual respect. Proving others wrong can also take a significant emotional toll. When we are constantly engaged in power struggles, defending our position, or trying to win an argument, we are engaging in an exhausting mental and emotional battle. This energy is drained from more productive or fulfilling pursuits. We become focused on the outcome of the debate rather than the process of growth or understanding. Furthermore, the act of constantly needing to prove someone wrong can limit our intellectual growth. If we are too invested in being right, we may stop questioning our beliefs, challenging ourselves, or remaining open to new ideas. This stifles our ability to evolve, as we cling to old, outdated notions. True growth happens when we are willing to accept that we don't have all the answers, and that we can learn from others, even from those we might initially disagree with. Shifting from defensiveness to openness. Letting go of the need to prove others wrong requires a shift in mindset. Instead of focusing on winning or being validated, we begin to prioritize understanding. When we shift our focus from being right to being open to learning, we free ourselves from the anxiety of needing to control the conversation. This doesn't mean we abandon our beliefs or opinions. It means we approach conversations with humility and a willingness to hear others out. One of the best ways to do this is by practicing active listening. Active listening involves giving the other person our full attention, trying to understand their perspective without judgment or immediate rebuttal. It's about truly hearing what they are saying, asking clarifying questions, and acknowledging their feelings or thoughts. This approach fosters mutual respect and creates a safe space for open dialogue. When we listen actively, we allow ourselves to gain a broader understanding of the issue at hand. We may even find that our initial position isn't as solid as we thought, or that there are valid points in the other person's perspective that we hadn't considered. This shift from defensiveness to openness is essential for healthy communication and personal growth. The power of letting go. Letting go of the need to prove others wrong is a liberating experience. It means accepting that we can still maintain our dignity, self-worth, and identity without needing to fight for validation. It allows us to embrace humility, flexibility, and vulnerability, qualities that foster connection, growth, and peace. By letting go of the compulsion to be right, we make room for more meaningful and enriching experiences. When we stop focusing on winning arguments, we open ourselves up to a richer, more authentic engagement with the world. We can be confident in our beliefs without needing to defend them at all costs. We allow ourselves to be wrong, to learn, and to evolve. This creates a more peaceful, less reactive approach to life, one that values relationships over egos and growth over certainty. Practical tips for letting go of the need to prove others wrong. Practice humility. Acknowledge that no one has all the answers, including you. Be open to the idea that others may have valuable insights. Shift your focus to understanding. Instead of trying to prove your point, focus on understanding where the other person is coming from. Ask questions, listen actively, and seek common ground. Embrace vulnerability. Allow yourself to admit when you don't know something or when you've made a mistake. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Let go of the desire for external validation. Recognize that your self-worth is not determined by being right or having the last word. Your value comes from who you are, not from your ability to be correct. Learn to walk away from unnecessary arguments. Not every conversation needs to turn into a debate. If the discussion is not productive, learn to gracefully disengage. Focus on the relationship, not the outcome. When in conversation, remember that the relationship is more important than winning the discussion. Foster mutual respect and understanding. Reflect on your emotions. Pay attention to your emotional triggers in conversations. When you feel the urge to prove someone wrong, pause and ask yourself why. Is it fear, insecurity, or pride? Understanding your emotions can help you make more intentional choices. Conclusion. Letting go of the need to prove others wrong is not about suppressing our beliefs or remaining silent when we feel strongly about something. It's about understanding that being right is not always the most important thing. When we let go of the impulse to defend ourselves at all costs, we open up the possibility for more meaningful conversations, stronger relationships, and deeper personal growth. By embracing humility, practicing active listening, and valuing understanding over being right, we create a space for connection, empathy, and peace. This shift in mindset doesn't just improve our relationships with others, it improves our relationship with ourselves. We become more secure in who we are and more open to learning from the world around us. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It is a fundamental skill for building deeper, more meaningful connections and maintaining healthy relationships. Yet, true empathy goes beyond simply feeling sorry for someone. It involves putting ourselves in their shoes.
understanding their emotions, and seeing the world through their eyes. Developing empathy can significantly enhance how we communicate with others and help us navigate conflicts with compassion and insight. The essence of empathy. Empathy is often confused with sympathy, but there is a crucial difference between the two. While sympathy involves feeling pity for someone's situation, empathy goes a step further by seeking to understand their experiences and emotions. It is about connecting with others on a human level and being genuinely present with them in their struggles and triumphs. It allows us to see the world through someone else's perspective, which helps us relate to their experiences and offer support that is meaningful and appropriate. When we develop empathy, we become better at responding to people's needs, listening attentively to their concerns, and offering support that truly resonates with them. We are more likely to offer a compassionate response rather than a judgmental one, and we can offer solutions or comfort that address the person's specific needs, rather than making assumptions about what might help. Empathy is not an inherent trait that we are born with, but rather a skill that can be nurtured and developed over time. By cultivating empathy, we open ourselves to understanding the complexities of others' emotions and experiences, leading to greater compassion, tolerance, and respect in our relationships. The role of active listening in empathy. One of the most important ways to develop empathy is through active listening. Active listening involves more than just hearing words. It's about being fully present in the conversation, understanding the message being conveyed, and reflecting on the feelings behind the words. It requires us to listen without judgment, interrupting, or forming a response while the other person is speaking. Instead, we allow them the space to express themselves fully, showing that we value their perspective and are committed to understanding their point of view. When we listen actively, we validate the other person's experience and create a safe environment for them to share their thoughts and feelings. This not only strengthens the connection between us, but also helps to build trust. The more we listen empathetically, the more we are able to gain insight into the emotions and motivations that drive others. This deeper understanding helps us relate better to their situation, whether they are going through a difficult time or sharing a moment of joy. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes. The core of empathy lies in the ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and see the world from their perspective. This practice requires us to step away from our own personal experiences, biases, and emotions, and try to understand what the other person might be feeling in their unique situation. Putting ourselves in someone else's shoes means imagining their emotional state, the challenges they are facing, and the thoughts they might be having. It also involves recognizing that everyone has their own story and struggles, many of which are not immediately visible to us. For example, someone who appears angry or distant may actually be experiencing deep frustration or sadness. By understanding the root causes of their emotions, we can respond in a more thoughtful and compassionate way. This kind of perspective taking not only allows us to respond more sensitively, but also helps us avoid making hasty judgments about others. When we develop the habit of considering how others might be feeling, we begin to understand their actions and reactions with greater clarity. We stop seeing their behavior as a personal attack or a challenge to our beliefs, and instead, we recognize it as part of their emotional experience. The importance of emotional intelligence in empathy. Emotional intelligence, EQ, plays a crucial role in empathy. EQ refers to our ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as the emotions of others. It involves being aware of how our feelings affect our thoughts and actions, as well as understanding how others might be feeling and responding accordingly. People with high emotional intelligence are generally better at recognizing and interpreting the emotions of others. They are able to gauge the mood of a room, detect subtle cues in body language or tone of voice, and respond in a way that demonstrates empathy and understanding. They are also more adept at managing their own emotional responses in challenging situations, which helps prevent misunderstandings and conflict. By improving our emotional intelligence, we become more aware of our own emotional states and how they may influence our interactions with others. This awareness allows us to be more mindful in our responses, which, in turn, helps us connect with others on a deeper level. It also helps us manage our reactions during moments of conflict, making it easier to navigate challenging conversations with empathy and patience. How to cultivate empathy in your daily life. Practice active listening. Give your full attention to the speaker,
avoid interrupting, and focus on understanding their message rather than formulating your response. Ask clarifying questions to ensure you are fully engaged. Put yourself in others' shoes. Try to imagine what the other person is feeling, thinking, or experiencing. Consider their background, circumstances, and emotions before reacting. Challenge your biases. Everyone has biases, but it's important to challenge them in order to see others more clearly. Make an effort to understand people from different backgrounds and perspectives, especially if they have had experiences that differ from your own. Validate others' feelings. Acknowledge and affirm the emotions that others are expressing. Even if you don't fully understand or agree with their feelings, simply validating them can help the other person feel seen and heard. Be patient. Empathy requires time and patience. It's about taking the time to understand someone else's perspective, even if it takes longer than you'd like. Give others the space to share their emotions without rushing or cutting them off. Engage in acts of kindness. Small gestures of kindness can go a long way in developing empathy. Whether it's offering a helping hand or a listening ear, showing kindness helps us connect with others on a deeper level and strengthens our capacity for empathy. Seek out diverse perspectives. Interact with people from different walks of life. Learn from their experiences, listen to their stories, and broaden your understanding of the world. The more we expose ourselves to diverse perspectives, the more empathy we develop. Practice self-compassion. Empathy starts with being kind and understanding toward ourselves. When we treat ourselves with compassion, we are better able to extend that same kindness to others. Self-compassion helps us manage our own emotions and respond to others with patience and understanding. Embrace vulnerability. Being open and vulnerable allows others to feel safe doing the same. By sharing our own emotions and experiences, we create a space for mutual empathy and understanding. Vulnerability fosters authentic connections and strengthens relationships. The impact of empathy on relationships. Developing empathy has a profound impact on our relationships, both personal and professional. In personal relationships, empathy helps us build trust, resolve conflicts, and support one another in meaningful ways. When we empathize with our partner, friends, or family members, we deepen our connection and strengthen our bond. Empathy allows us to communicate more effectively, reduce misunderstandings, and work together toward common goals. In the workplace, empathy improves collaboration, leadership, and teamwork. Leaders who are empathetic are able to understand their employees' concerns, provide guidance and support, and create a positive work environment. Empathy also fosters creativity and problem-solving, as individuals are more willing to share ideas and collaborate when they feel understood and valued. Empathy also contributes to social harmony by reducing prejudice, discrimination, and conflict. When we empathize with others, we recognize their shared humanity and see beyond surface differences. This opens the door to greater understanding and acceptance of people from all walks of life, leading to more inclusive and peaceful communities. Conclusion. Developing empathy is a powerful tool for building stronger connections with others, resolving conflicts, and improving our emotional intelligence. By practicing active listening, putting ourselves in others' shoes, and engaging in acts of kindness, we can cultivate empathy in our daily lives. The more we develop this essential skill, the more we enrich our relationships and contribute to a compassionate, understanding world. The key is to approach every interaction with an open heart, a curious mind, and a willingness to connect with others on a deeper level. Setting boundaries is an essential skill for preserving our well-being and fostering healthy relationships. Yet many of us struggle with this practice, feeling guilty or emotionally conflicted when we attempt to establish limits with others. Whether it's saying no to additional work, declining an invitation, or prioritizing personal time, setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially when we fear disappointing others or damaging our relationships. However, learning to set boundaries without guilt or emotional conflict is crucial for maintaining a sense of self-respect and ensuring that our needs are met. The importance of boundaries and self-care. Boundaries are not barriers designed to isolate us from others, but rather guidelines that define what is acceptable and what is not. They allow us to protect our emotional, physical, and mental well-being by ensuring that we don't overextend ourselves or tolerate behavior that feels disrespectful or harmful. Setting boundaries is a form of self-care, as it helps us prioritize our own needs and ensure that we have the space and energy to live authentically.
When we neglect to set boundaries, we risk burnout, resentment, and a sense of disempowerment. We may feel overwhelmed by the demands of others and lose sight of our own priorities and values. Boundaries give us the clarity and strength to say no when necessary and to preserve our personal time and energy. Setting healthy boundaries is an act of self-love. It is a way of honoring our own needs and ensuring that we are able to show up as our best selves for others. By setting clear and respectful limits, we can build relationships that are based on mutual respect and understanding, rather than one-sided obligations and unspoken expectations.
Overcoming the fear of guilt. One of the primary reasons people avoid setting boundaries is the fear of guilt. We may worry that saying no will disappoint others or cause conflict. We may feel that setting limits is selfish, or that we are letting people down. These fears can prevent us from asserting ourselves and create internal emotional conflict. The first step in overcoming guilt is understanding that it is a natural reaction, often rooted in deep-seated beliefs about pleasing others or avoiding conflict. From a young age, many of us are taught to prioritize the needs of others, and we may internalize the belief that saying no is a form of rejection or unkindness. These beliefs can make boundary setting feel uncomfortable, but recognizing that they are simply learned patterns of thought can help us challenge them. It's important to remind ourselves that setting boundaries is not a rejection of others, but rather an affirmation of our own needs and values. Saying no is not an attack on someone else, but a way of taking care of ourselves. When we set boundaries, we are teaching others how to treat us and demonstrating that we value our time, energy, and well-being. We are also modeling self-care, which encourages others to do the same. Identifying your needs and limits. Before we can set effective boundaries, we must first understand what our needs are. This requires self-awareness and reflection. Take the time to consider situations in which you have felt uncomfortable, overwhelmed, or taken advantage of. These feelings are often signals that your boundaries have been crossed or ignored. Start by clarifying what you need to feel safe, respected, and balanced. What are the behaviors or demands that drain your energy or compromise your values? What situations make you feel stressed or depleted? Identifying these triggers will give you the clarity needed to establish boundaries that protect your well-being. Boundaries vary from person to person, as everyone has different needs and comfort levels. For example, one person may need alone time to recharge after social events, while another may need physical space to feel at ease in a relationship. Some may set boundaries around work-life balance, while others may focus on emotional boundaries with family and friends. Understanding your personal limits is crucial for setting boundaries that align with your values and needs. Communicating boundaries clearly and respectfully. Once you have identified your boundaries, it's time to communicate them clearly and respectfully. Clear communication is key to ensuring that your needs are understood and honored. When setting boundaries, avoid apologizing excessively or over-explaining your reasons. A simple and direct statement is often all that is needed. For example, if you need time to yourself, you might say, "I need some time alone to recharge after this week." Or, "I'm not able to take on any additional projects right now." These statements are firm yet respectful, conveying your need without feeling the need to justify it. When you communicate your boundaries in this way, you're demonstrating self-respect and encouraging others to respect your limits as well. It's important to remember that boundary setting is not about controlling others or dictating their behavior. It's about expressing your own needs and making it clear what you are and are not willing to accept. By speaking up and setting clear boundaries, you create an environment of mutual respect and understanding, where both your needs and the needs of others can be honored. Handling resistance and emotional conflict. It's natural to encounter resistance when setting boundaries. Some people may be surprised, disappointed, or even upset when we say no. Others may try to persuade us to change our mind or guilt us into saying yes. It's important to stay firm in your boundaries, even if others react negatively. When faced with resistance, remain calm and assertive. Avoid engaging in emotional debates or becoming defensive. Instead, reiterate your boundary calmly and confidently. For example, if someone pushes back, you can say,
I understand that you're disappointed, but I've already made my decision. Or, I can't do that right now, but I appreciate your understanding. By staying firm and calm, you reinforce your commitment to your own well-being and demonstrate that your boundaries are non-negotiable. It's also important to avoid internalizing others' emotional reactions. Just because someone is upset by your boundary doesn't mean you have done something wrong. Remember that their emotions are their responsibility, not yours. You can empathize with their feelings without compromising your own needs. By detaching from the need for external validation, you free yourself from the emotional conflict that often arises when setting boundaries. Building resilience in boundary setting. Setting boundaries becomes easier with practice. The more you practice saying no and asserting your limits, the more confident and comfortable you will become. Start by setting small boundaries in low-stakes situations, such as declining an invitation or asking for personal space when you need it. These small victories will build your confidence and help you handle more significant boundary-setting situations with greater ease. It's also important to reflect on your experiences with boundary setting. Take note of situations where you were able to set boundaries successfully, as well as instances where you struggled. Reflecting on your experiences will help you identify areas for improvement and build resilience in maintaining your boundaries over time. The long-term benefits of setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is not just about protecting ourselves in the short term. It's about creating a sustainable framework for emotional health and personal growth. Healthy boundaries allow us to preserve our energy, reduce stress, and maintain a sense of balance in our lives. They help us focus on what truly matters to us and align our actions with our values and goals. Boundaries also contribute to the long-term health of our relationships. When we set clear and respectful boundaries, we create a foundation of trust and respect with others. Healthy boundaries reduce the likelihood of resentment, burnout, and emotional exhaustion, allowing relationships to flourish in a supportive and balanced way. In the workplace, setting boundaries is essential for maintaining a healthy work-life balance and preventing burnout. By establishing limits around our time and energy, we can avoid becoming overwhelmed by the demands of our jobs and preserve the mental and emotional space we need to perform at our best. Conclusion. Setting boundaries without guilt or emotional conflict is an empowering skill that protects our well-being, fosters healthier relationships, and ensures that we remain true to ourselves. By understanding our needs, communicating our boundaries clearly, and remaining firm in the face of resistance, we can create an environment where both our needs and the needs of others are respected. It's important to remember that setting boundaries is an act of self-care, not selfishness. By setting healthy boundaries, we are not only protecting ourselves, but also creating space for growth, peace, and authentic connections. Triggers are emotional signals that spark strong reactions, often catching us off guard and compelling us to react before we fully understand why. These moments of heightened emotion, such as anger, fear, or anxiety, can seem overwhelming. But learning how to observe these triggers without allowing them to control our responses is a crucial step in mastering emotional intelligence. This chapter will guide you through the process of recognizing your triggers, understanding their origins, and responding thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Understanding emotional triggers. Emotional triggers are usually rooted in past experiences, unresolved trauma, or deeply ingrained beliefs. They are moments or situations that activate a specific emotional response, often linked to a memory or feeling of vulnerability. For example, being criticized may trigger feelings of inadequacy or rejection, while someone's impatience may stir up anxiety or fear of failure. These emotional reactions may be disproportionate to the current situation, which is why they feel so overwhelming. Triggers are personal, and they can differ greatly from person to person. What triggers one person may not affect another in the same way. Identifying your own triggers is the first step in taking control of your emotional reactions. By recognizing what sets you off, you gain the power to interrupt the automatic emotional response and choose a more measured, thoughtful reaction. The role of self-reflection in identifying triggers. Self-reflection is essential for understanding your emotional triggers. Take time to observe the situations where you find yourself reacting intensely. Notice the emotions that surface, the thoughts that accompany them, and the physical sensations that arise in your body.
Do you feel a rush of anger, a knot in your stomach, or a tightness in your chest? By paying attention to these cues, you can begin to identify the specific triggers that lead to these emotional responses. For instance, you might notice that you feel irritated when a colleague interrupts you during meetings, or you might experience anxiety when someone raises their voice. These recurring emotional responses can serve as clues to underlying triggers. Keeping a journal where you record these moments can help you track patterns and gain clarity on the situations or people that activate your emotions. Viewing triggers as opportunities for growth. Once you've identified your triggers, it's essential to shift your perspective. Rather than seeing triggers as disruptive or something to avoid, begin to view them as opportunities for growth and self-awareness. Triggers are like emotional teachers, revealing areas of your life that may need healing, understanding, or change. For example, if a particular situation causes anger, ask yourself, what is this anger trying to tell me? Is there an unmet need or a boundary that hasn't been respected? Understanding the root cause of your triggers allows you to approach them with curiosity rather than judgment. This mindset shift turns emotional reactions into opportunities to learn more about yourself. With this approach, you can start to respond in ways that align with your values and long-term goals, rather than being controlled by the trigger itself. Creating space between emotion and reaction. The key to observing your triggers without being controlled by them is creating space between the emotion and the reaction. In moments of emotional intensity, it's easy to react impulsively. However, by pausing and taking a moment to breathe, you can interrupt the automatic reaction and give yourself time to choose a more intentional response. When you feel a trigger activating, resist the urge to react immediately. Instead, practice deep breathing or mindfulness to calm your nervous system. This simple technique can help you gain perspective and reduce the intensity of the emotion. You might say to yourself, I feel angry right now, but I don't need to act on this anger. I can choose how I respond. The more you practice pausing before reacting, the easier it becomes to create this space and to respond in a way that is calm, thoughtful, and aligned with your values. Over time, this practice strengthens your emotional resilience, making it easier to handle challenging situations without being overwhelmed by your emotions. Using mindfulness to observe triggers. Mindfulness is a powerful tool for managing emotional triggers. It involves observing your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations without judgment. By practicing mindfulness, you can develop greater awareness of your triggers and create a more balanced response to them. When you experience a trigger, instead of getting caught up in the emotional storm, try to observe the experience with curiosity. Notice what is happening in your body and mind. What thoughts arise? What physical sensations do you feel? By acknowledging these experiences without judgment, you create a gap between the trigger and your response. Mindfulness also helps you detach from the emotional intensity of the trigger. When you notice yourself becoming overwhelmed, take a few moments to focus on your breath or your surroundings. This grounding technique can help you stay present and prevent the trigger from taking over. Developing emotional resilience through triggers. Building resilience in the face of triggers requires consistent practice. Emotional resilience is the ability to stay calm and balanced, even in difficult situations. When you face your triggers with awareness and mindfulness, you build this resilience over time. Start by practicing small, manageable triggers. These could be situations that don't cause a major emotional upheaval, but still evoke a reaction. For example, when someone cuts in front of you in line, instead of immediately feeling irritated, take a deep breath and remind yourself that the situation is temporary. By practicing in low-stakes situations, you will gradually build your emotional resilience and feel more capable of handling larger triggers. Over time, this practice will make it easier to respond thoughtfully and calmly, even in high-stress or emotionally charged situations. As your emotional resilience grows, you'll find that triggers have less power over you, and your ability to remain composed and centered increases. Practical strategies for managing triggers. Here are some practical strategies to help you manage your triggers effectively. Pause and breathe. When you feel a trigger, take a moment to pause and focus on your breath. Deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps calm your emotions and regain control. Label your emotions. Naming your emotions can help create distance between you and the trigger. For example, if you feel angry, silently acknowledge, I am feeling angry right now. This simple act helps you observe the emotion rather than become consumed by it.
Journal your triggers. Keeping a journal allows you to reflect on the situations that trigger strong emotions. Write down the events, your emotional responses, and the physical sensations you experienced. This practice helps you track patterns and gain insights into your triggers. Use grounding techniques. When you feel triggered, try grounding yourself by focusing on your senses. Notice what you can see, hear, smell, and touch. Engaging your senses helps bring you back to the present moment and reduces the emotional intensity. Practice self-compassion. When you experience a trigger, treat yourself with kindness and understanding. Avoid self-criticism or judgment, and instead, acknowledge that you are human and that emotional reactions are part of the healing process. Seek support. If a trigger is particularly intense or linked to past trauma, consider seeking support from a therapist or counselor. Talking through your triggers with a professional can help you process the emotions and develop strategies for managing them effectively. Reflecting on triggers for growth. As you begin to observe your triggers and practice mindful responses, take time to reflect on what each trigger is teaching you. Triggers often reveal unmet needs, unresolved wounds, or areas for personal growth. Instead of viewing them as obstacles, see them as opportunities to expand your self-awareness and emotional intelligence. For example, a trigger might reveal that you need to set better boundaries in your relationships, or that you are holding on to past resentments that need to be released. By reflecting on your triggers, you gain valuable insights into the areas of your life that require attention, healing, or change. The more you reflect on your triggers, the more you can develop a deeper understanding of your emotional landscape. This self-awareness is the foundation of emotional growth, as it allows you to break free from automatic reactions and choose responses that are aligned with your values and goals. Conclusion. Learning to observe your triggers without letting them control you is an essential skill for emotional mastery. By developing self-awareness, practicing mindfulness, and responding with intention, you can transform your emotional reactions into opportunities for growth. Over time, this practice will build emotional resilience and help you navigate life's challenges with greater clarity and balance. Recognize that triggers are not something to be feared, but rather a tool for self-discovery. Each time you face a trigger with mindfulness and curiosity, you strengthen your emotional intelligence and deepen your understanding of yourself. As you continue to practice this skill, you'll find that triggers have less power over your emotions, allowing you to live with greater peace, authenticity, and emotional freedom. Responding with logic instead of emotional reactions is a transformative skill that can change the way you navigate challenges, conflicts, and day-to-day situations. Emotions are a natural part of being human, but when we allow them to dictate our actions, we often make decisions we later regret. Logic, on the other hand, provides clarity and helps us make decisions that align with our long-term goals and values. In this chapter, we'll explore how to cultivate the ability to pause, assess, and choose logical responses over impulsive emotional reactions. Understanding the power of emotional responses. Emotions are powerful signals that reflect how we feel in any given moment. They alert us to our desires, fears, and needs. For example, anger might arise when we feel mistreated or disrespected, while sadness might emerge when we experience loss or disappointment. While emotions are essential, they can sometimes cloud our judgment, leading to impulsive actions that are not in our best interest. A common emotional response, for instance, could be reacting defensively when criticized. In the heat of the moment, our first impulse might be to argue or justify ourselves, but this emotional reaction can escalate the conflict and prevent productive dialogue. Instead, a logical response, pausing, reflecting, and assessing the situation, can help us manage our emotions and respond more constructively. One of the most powerful ways to respond with logic is to pause before reacting. This brief pause allows us to step back from the emotion and make space for reasoned thought. When you notice a surge of emotion, take a deep breath and give yourself a moment to reflect on the situation. This pause is not about suppressing your feelings, but rather about creating the space to choose a more thoughtful response. During this pause, assess the situation objectively. Ask yourself, what is the source of my emotion? What are the facts of the situation? How would I ideally respond in a way that aligns with my values? For example, if you're faced with an unexpected change in plans that causes frustration, instead of immediately expressing your annoyance, ask yourself whether the frustration is truly warranted or if it's an overreaction. Taking a moment to assess the situation and gather your thoughts can help you prevent the impulse to act on emotions and give you the clarity to respond logically. Identifying the difference between emotion and logic. One of the key steps in responding logically is recognizing the difference between emotion and logic. Emotions are driven by how we feel, while logic is driven by facts, reason, and analysis. When we operate from a place of emotion, we often let assumptions and biases cloud our judgment. In contrast, when we approach a situation logically, we focus on the facts and think critically about the possible outcomes of our actions. To illustrate this difference, imagine a scenario where you feel angry because a colleague takes credit for your idea in a meeting. Your emotional response might be to lash out or confront them immediately, but this could lead to further conflict and hurt feelings. A logical approach, on the other hand, would involve taking a step back, analyzing the situation, and determining the best course of action. Perhaps calmly addressing the issue with your colleague in a constructive manner, or seeking clarification with your manager later. Recognizing when emotions are influencing your thoughts allows you to detach from the situation and evaluate it more objectively. This distinction between emotional reactions and logical responses can be a game changer in the way you approach challenges. Asking the right questions. When you're faced with an emotional situation, asking the right questions can help you move from an emotional reaction to a logical response. Consider the following questions before reacting. What is the problem I'm trying to solve? Focus on the issue at hand rather than being swept away by your feelings. What are the facts? What is actually happening? Try to remove assumptions and evaluate the situation based on what you know. What outcome do I want to achieve? Think about what your ideal resolution looks like and how your response can contribute to that. How will this response affect my relationships? Consider how your actions will impact others and how you want to be perceived. What are the long-term consequences? Will your response contribute to lasting peace, or will it escalate the situation? By asking yourself these questions, you can shift your focus from reactive emotions to thoughtful, logical solutions. This practice helps you to avoid making decisions based on impulse or temporary emotions, and instead to act with intention and clarity. Developing empathy without losing logic. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others, and it plays a key role in our responses to challenging situations. However, empathy can be easily overwhelmed by strong emotions, leading us to act impulsively in an attempt to fix the situation. This is especially true in emotionally charged conversations or conflicts, where the desire to be understood may lead to defensiveness or over-explanation. To develop empathy without losing logic, focus on listening actively. Rather than immediately defending yourself, take the time to understand the other person's perspective. Ask questions, listen to their point of view, and acknowledge their feelings. At the same time, remember that empathy does not mean agreeing with everything the other person says. It simply means recognizing their feelings and offering your perspective in a calm and respectful manner. For instance, if a friend expresses frustration about something you did, instead of immediately defending your actions, try to listen without interruption. Then, respond logically by explaining your perspective and finding common ground. This approach fosters mutual respect and prevents the conversation from devolving into an emotional argument. Strengthening logical thinking. Like any skill, logical thinking improves with practice. To develop your ability to respond logically, engage in activities that challenge your reasoning skills. This might involve reading books on critical thinking, engaging in debates, or solving puzzles. By exercising your logical mind regularly, you'll become more adept at applying logic to your daily interactions and challenges. Additionally, reflect on past situations where emotional reactions got the best of you. Identify what triggered your emotional response, how it affected your behavior, and what logical approach could have produced a better outcome. This reflection helps you recognize patterns in your responses and guides you toward more logical thinking in future situations. Creating mental habits for logical responses. One of the best ways to respond logically
is to create mental habits that reinforce reasoned thinking. These habits can include mantras, reminders, or visual cues that help you stay grounded in logic. For example, whenever you feel a surge of emotion, remind yourself to pause and think. This simple phrase can help interrupt automatic reactions and refocus your mind on the facts of the situation.
Another useful mental habit is reframing negative thoughts. If you find yourself thinking, "This situation is unfair and I need to defend myself," reframe that thought into something more objective. What are the facts of the situation, and what can I do to address this calmly? By changing your inner dialogue, you train yourself to think logically rather than emotionally. Managing stress to support logical thinking. High levels of stress can impair cognitive function and cloud judgment, making it more difficult to respond logically. Therefore, managing stress is an essential part of strengthening your logical thinking. Incorporate stress reduction techniques into your daily routine, such as mindfulness, exercise, and adequate rest. These practices help maintain mental clarity and improve your ability to think logically in stressful situations. Taking care of your physical health is also important for maintaining emotional balance and clarity. When your body is well rested, nourished, and physically active, your mind operates more effectively, allowing you to respond logically to challenges. Conclusion: learning to respond with logic instead of emotional reactions is a powerful skill that can transform your decision-making, relationships, and overall well-being. By pausing before reacting, identifying the facts, and focusing on long-term goals, you can make decisions that align with your values and contribute to your personal growth. Cultivating empathy without losing logic, developing logical thinking skills, and managing stress all play important roles in this process. Remember that logical responses don't mean suppressing your emotions or denying your feelings. It's about recognizing when emotions are driving your reactions and choosing to engage with a situation thoughtfully and intentionally. Over time, this practice will strengthen your emotional intelligence, enhance your relationships, and empower you to navigate life's challenges with clarity, confidence, and composure.